In this video, we're going to cover the School of Abjuration in reference to the Wizard's subclass. And I'm going to be doing this video a little bit differently because of the sheer number of schools here. There's going to be a lot of information that I would end up repeating on all of these videos that I don't necessarily need to repeat. And the reason why I say that is I covered a lot of detail within the Evoker class specialization. And that covered how spellcasting works and things along those particular lines. So in this particular video, I am going to focus strictly on the features that you gain and the benefits that you gain through the particular Abjuration school, as opposed to how does spellcasting work. And I highly recommend that you watch the Evoker video if you're really looking to see how spellcasting itself actually works. So let's get started. I've got our basic level 1 wizard here. I've renamed him to an Abjurer, and I'm going to get the portraits set up here. So this would be a human again. Once again, I got a few tokens in here, or portraits rather. So those are all clerics. We'll use this one. Oops. Keep forgetting for those, you can just select them. The token I will also change. And let's go in here. Blue. And again, that's just so that if I make use of the combat tracker, I can determine exactly who is what outside of the name. So if I put them on a map or anything like that. Okay, so I've now got that particular setup done. When I drag the class into place, right now we're level 1, as you can see here, we're going to acquire the prompt for selecting the school. And this time I'm going to select the School of Abjuration. So let me just quickly do that. And there. Okay. 2 of the features that we have acquired, specific to the Abjuration School of Specialization, is Abjuration Savant and Arcane Ward. One of these is actionable, one of these is not. In reference to the Abjuration Savant, when you go through the process of learning and copying an Abjuration spell into your spell book, it takes half the amount of gold it used to at this point. And what that means is that instead of a spell costing you 100 gold to copy into your spell book, it now only costs 50 gold. The Arcane Ward is a very special kind of spell. What it does is that when you are in the process of casting an Abjuration spell of first or higher level, you can simultaneously use a strand of this particular of that particular spell's magic to create a magical ward on yourself that lasts until you finish a long rest. So what that means is that if you cast an Abjuration spell, you can trigger this Arcane Ward, and it will apply to your character as an effect around your character for protection. And it will be equal to twice your wizard level plus your intelligence modifier. So at level 2, it would be 4 plus your intelligence modifier. At level 3, it would be 6 plus your intelligence modifier. So you can see it grows. And what it does is it drops temporary hit points onto your character at the time that you cast it. And it's your wizard level. It is not the level of the spell. So that is actually a very useful benefit to have. And this would be under the Abjuration school. So what I'm going to do is drag and drop that into place. That's going to create a powers slot. And it does not look like this has an effect just yet, but we'll confirm that. Okay, I think that's how it is spelled. But you'll notice that this really isn't set up in any way, shape, or form. All right, so there's probably going to be some math required here. And you get essentially 1 use per day. It will last for the day. Oops. Preparation and combat. Yeah, see, there's no effect here. So we're going to want to add an effect. And it's going to be a healing effect. Bring this up. And it's not going to be a die roll. It is going to be 2 times your level. And for this part here, it's going to be a bit... I wonder if I could do this. And let's select your dexterity. All right, let's give this a try, see what actually happens. So right now we have a hit point of 4, and this is going to be a temp, I should say. We've got a hit point of 14. So if I cast this, what actually happens? Nothing. Because there's no die going on here, so it's just interesting. Okay, so I'm wondering if this is even going to work. Self. All right. Okay, so that is working. 2 times level is 2 is 4, plus your dexterity is not working apparently. So sorry, that should have been intelligence, not dexterity. Yeah, intelligence. All right, so that might have actually worked. Let's try that again. Let's zero that out. Go to actions. 8. Yeah, that has worked. Okay, so this is how you can go through and set that particular ability up. I honestly don't know why it wasn't set up that way. And what this does is as you level up, it will automatically calculate your level, multiply that by 2, and then add your intelligence modifier to the overall total. So if, just for kicks, if I were to throw a die 20 in here to show you that everything will actually go through the process of being added up, so I'm going to clear out that again. It will roll the die, and 8 is what we would normally get, plus 17 gives us 25. So it goes to show that you can actually chain all of these particular items together, and the total sum of those values will be applied to your character. Although 25 hit points for a level 2 wizard would be a little bit excessive, but even then, 8 hit points is pretty bloody good for what you're already receiving. Now, the thing is, that only occurs when you actually get to choose or are going through the process of casting an abjuration spell. So that takes care of the abjuration or the abjurer's arcane ward ability. That's actually quite powerful. I like that. Right. So next at level 2, we don't gain any cantrips, we don't gain any bonuses, and we get a spell. But one thing I will cover in this particular video, that as you level, you have the ability to add 2 spells to your spell book every level. So what that means is that you can actually go through and choose 2 more first level spells, because we can only cast first level spells here, and add them to your existing spellbook. And right now, all we have are Burning Hands, Chromatic Orb, Detect Magic, Identify, Mage Armor, and Shield. None of our spells are necessarily specific to the Abjuration school. I think these 2 are Evocation. Yep. This one should be Divination. Identify should also be Divination. Mage Armor is Abjuration. Okay, so we do have 1. And we have 2. Okay, so we already have 2 spells that can actually that we can take advantage of. So if you were to cast Shield, or if you were to cast Mage Armor, you could automatically choose to apply that ward, arcane ward capability. And the reason why I've set this up as 1 daily is there's no expiration as to when this happens, but you can't cast it again until you take a long rest. So if you burn through these particular hit points, so 8 hit points total, then what'll actually happen is that once those hit points are gone, that's it. You can't do it again until you're done until you finish a long rest. That's when you should be able to gain this ability back. If the damage reduces the ward to hits to 0 points, you take any remaining damage. Yeah. So while the ward is hit 0 points, it can't absorb damage, but its magic remains. Whenever you cast an Abjuration spell of first level or higher, the ward regains a number of hit points. Okay. So what that means is that you can actually continue to apply that particular. Oh wow, that is overpowered. Wow. I just realized how overpowered that could actually be. Anytime you actually cast that particular spell. Okay, so we do have to add another capability here. Whenever you cast an Abjuration spell at first level or higher, the ward regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell. So if you cast a level 1 spell, that means you'll be adding 2 hit points. So okay, so there is some additional work that we have to do here. So that would be your initial ward. And let's see. It'll be temp, it'll be self. I don't think you can actually do something based on a level of a given spell. So this part might require you to do some particular math. Let's just try something. I think this is going to be equal to what we already have for this. So if I apply this, yeah, it's going to be 4 hit points, and I suspect that's going to increase in levels. So we actually wanted 2 hit points, so that isn't going to work. So what if I just do that? This, by the way, if you don't have a value in here, it implies a 1. So let me get rid of that. Oops. Okay, so what you're going to want to do is most likely set up a bunch here that will rebuild your temp pool, if you will, based on the spell level that you cast. So if you choose a level 1 spell, you would click this one, and then just go through and add in each one for each level, and you would do that again. Add temporary effect, self, temp, and then next level would be 4. So you would execute this one if you cast a level 2 spell, and you just add a bunch to represent the spell level that you have chosen. And there's no point actually well, I suppose you could go through and add in all of them as you progress through the campaign. So just take a few minutes, add one when there's a little bit of a lull in the campaign. But generally, you'll probably want to do it as you gain access to higher level spells. And so at level 5, for example, would be when we go through and add in one for level 6, stuff like that. So the way that you'll play this is that when you cast Mage Armor or Shield, and I know I've taken a bit of a tangent on actually adding spells here, you would cast this first one. When you then, now that that is active for the quote-unquote the day, you would then go through and cast an additional one. Like if you cast another spell that was an Abjuration spell, you would add this one if it was a level 1 spell, this one if it was a level 2 spell, and so on and so forth. Now, does this mean that it can go higher? Twice the level. Once you create the word, you can't create it again until you finish a long rest. Okay, so you can only create it once, which is what I was stating earlier, but you can regain hit points to it. Okay, so you can't do it if it's already at yeah, it regains a number of hit points equal to twice the level of the spell. All right. So I suspect that means that you can go as high as 8, but you cannot go higher than that for your total gain. So I would recommend that anyone who has a different opinion there, go ahead and comment. I'll listen to all of the opinions, and we can go through and discuss that. I don't get the feeling from the way that this is worded that when you can cast an abjuration spell, if it hasn't already burned through your temporary hit points, you can't get any hit points added to it because of that. So, for instance, if we're already at our hit point for the day, so let's get rid of that. So if I cast a spell, I add the hit points, the initial ward, if you will. It's now at 8 points. If I take no damage throughout the day, but I continue to cast abjuration spells, I don't believe I get the ability to add to that. That would be far too powerful. You could end up having like 300 hit points here if you're really good at what you do at the higher levels. My math's probably a little bit off there, but you get the point. You can have quite a bit. So I would say that even if you took 2 hit points of damage and brought that down to 6, you would not be able to regain hit points until that actually hit a 0. Is the way that I'm reading that whole line there. So, in summary, that is my opinion. That's how I would allow my players to play with the Arcane Ward. But please let me know if you have any discussion points you would like me to consider in reference to that. Oh, and they finally fixed the hit die counter. Yay! I'll have a video that shows that. Okay, so I don't believe projected ward came through. No, that comes through at level 6. All right, so now let's get back to actually adding the spells here. So I'm going to minimize that for now. An abjuration spell. Let's see. That's an illusion spell. Generally, the way that you'll want to work to really maximize your character's abilities would be to choose spells that fall within your school. That way, you don't have to worry about not taking advantage of things like your arcane ward. I already clicked on that. What is false life? Okay, that's a temporary hit point. That's transmutation, conjuration. There's not really a whole lot in the way of abjuration for first level. I'll take that one though. Expeditious retreat. Now, another thing that happens when you level up is that you are allowed to prepare an X number of spells equal to your level plus your intelligence modifier. Now, when I created this character in the Wizards video, we were able to choose 5 spells that we could actually tag as prepared. Now we can actually do 6. This one I don't have to actually prepare because that is an alarm spell. That's simply in the spell book, and it's a ritual, which means you can take the opportunity to simply cast it as a ritual spell at the end of the day. You don't need to actually go through and prep it. You can just read it out of your spell book. So I'm going to use Expeditious Retreat as the spell that I go through and prepare there. All right, so that would be level 2 for the Abjuration School Specialization. I will return when we get to the next level where we actually activate Projected Ward. I'm not going to go through the whole process of adding spells the whole time, simply because I've done that with the Evoker class. I don't need to do that with this particular school because I don't need to take full advantage of that. Now, granted, I don't necessarily want to have people watching these videos go and repeat or go look at other videos, although I thank you if you do. That is great. But if I don't do that in this particular case, it's going to take me forever to go through and finish the remaining Wizard schools, and I really want to get to some more advanced topics within Fantasy Grounds and some more additional topics within Fantasy Grounds, as well as cover a lot more of the base classes before I can get into those. So I'm going to burn through these pretty quick. All right. Okay. Level 6, I've gone ahead and leveled the wizard up to level 5 and applied everything as we go off camera. Level 6, we're going to acquire no additional cantrips here, but we did acquire one at level 4, and we don't gain any additional proficiency bonus, but we did acquire one at level 5. So we don't have to worry about anything there. We also do not acquire any additional levels in spells, although we did acquire the ability to cast level 2 spells at level 3 and level 3 spells at level 5, so we're just gaining an additional spell slot. But what we are going to gain is projected ward. So let me quickly apply the level. There we go. Just make sure, yep, okay. Now, starting at 6th level, when a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you can use your reaction to cause your arcane ward to absorb that damage. If this damage reduces the ward to 0 hit points, the warded creature takes any remaining damage. So what that means is that if you have a party member who has taken damage, and maybe they are very badly hurt, and you want to try to prevent them from being knocked unconscious or outright killed, depending on how much damage they took, then you could temporarily transfer any remaining temporary hit points that you have in your arcane ward over to them before the DM rolls that particular damage. And what'll happen there is that he would apply the amount of damage equal to the temporary hit points, and then the remaining amount of damage would go against the character's normal hit points. And that could be an NPC that you're trying to save. That could be a party member. That could be, I don't know, your familiar, if you happen to have one. Those kinds of things. And it's quite a useful capability. So I am going to quickly drop this into place. It's going to create it under the powers. I'm going to move this to Abjurer. Oops, Abjurer. And this part will require a little bit of manual intervention, because you can't assume that you're going to have all of your temporary hit points available to you. There's possibly a chance that you've already taken some damage. So essentially what you would do as a player is you would simply click this icon here when you're in combat. See, it's still there in summary. Oops, action. It's still there as a usable feature. And that just simply is prepared. That shouldn't... All right, I'm going to have to adjust that. That doesn't need to be... All right. Let's see. No, okay. So we're going to have to disable that. I totally did not consider that. So what you would do in reference to Arcane Ward, so I apologize for correcting myself on this, you just simply click here and then apply your spell. That way you're telling the DM that you're using Arcane Ward. Now, if you're going to apply or make use of what you currently have in your ward to protect another creature, you would click that and then tell the DM, I have, say, 6 hit points left in my arcane ward left. Please go ahead and transfer that amount of damage to me, and then the remaining damage to the character. So essentially, the DM would burn through the remaining amount of temporary hit points. Now, to show you that the ward is working as expected, we are currently level 6. That means we should gain a total of 17 temporary hit points, which is, in fact, correct. And the reason for that is that I went ahead and updated the intelligence modifier here when I gained the first ability score improvement at level 4. So the bonus there is now a +5. And I did no additional modification to this particular ability. It's still taking advantage of the built-in mechanics of Fantasy Grounds to automatically calculate that information for you. So you don't have to worry about going back and figuring that out. And now I have 17 additional hit points. So that's how that works. Okay, so that is level 6. I have not, as of yet, chosen my spells, so I will go ahead and do that right now. Where are all my spells? I have been choosing spells. There should be some level 2 and level 3 spells here. Let's just open that character back up. And I did add the Acid Splash cantrip, so there should be some level 2 spells here, because I have taken some level 2 spells. I might need to reload Fantasy Grounds here for that to return, so I'll be right back. Okay, so for some reason, restarting did not fix the problem. I actually had to drag another spell into place in order for it to regain the spells. So I'll just quickly show you what spells I have selected in this particular group for level 2 and for level 3. Now, I haven't gone through and selected any of the level 3 spells for level 6 just yet, and I'm finding that there aren't really a whole lot in the way of Abjuration spells. And even an Evoker can take advantage of a Fireball, or an Abjurer can take advantage of a Fireball. This is literally what I've been doing, is just going through the spells, identifying what is there. Now, Mage Circle, how can you be useful? Move that out of the way. Okay, that could be useful. And again, you're looking at maximizing the amount of benefit you can gain from your Arcane Ward capability and or your projected ward. Okay, so I've gone through and modified that. I'm at level 6 plus the initial 4, so I should be able to choose 10 total spells to study. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so I can choose 4 more. Level 2, let's go with Arcane Lock, Mouse Acid Arrow, Fireball, and Magic Circle. Okay, so that is level 6 for the Arcane Wizard. Okay, level 10 is going to be our next level here. So I'm going to drag this into place. And that is where we're going to acquire our next Arcane Tradition, or Tradition feature here. And we also gain another cantrip at this level. And at level 9, we gained our proficiency bonus increase. In addition, at level 7, we acquired our 4th level spells. And at level 9, we acquired our 5th level spells. Okay, so beginning at 10th level, when you cast an Abjuration spell that requires you to make an ability check as a point of casting, or part of casting that spell, as in Counterspell and Dispel Magic, you add your proficiency bonus to that ability check. Alright, so that is actually a good thing. Oops, I just bumped the microphone there again. Just trying to think on how we could actually go ahead and convert that. So I'm going to copy this to here. Juror. Proficiency bonus. So Counterspell requires what? Oops, Counterspell I think is level 3. Yes, it is. So Counterspell ability check using your spellcasting ability. The AC equals to 10 plus the spell's level. On a success, the creature's spell will fail. So, what is your check? When casting the spell using a higher, the interrupted spell has no effect if it's less than or equal to the level of the spell slot you used. Okay. So, if you cast this at higher levels, as long as that spell is equal to or less than the spell slot you selected. So let's say somebody's casting a 5th level spell at you, and you choose to cast Counterspell at 5th level, that automatically nullifies the spell that is coming at you. And 1 reaction when you see a creature with 60 feet. Alright, so what is your actual check? If the creature is at 3rd level or lower, the spell fails and has no effect. If it is casting a spell of 4th level or higher, make an ability check using your spellcasting ability. Your spellcasting ability. Okay, so that means it applies to your own. Intelligence is your spellcasting ability for your wizard's spell. Okay, so you're going to be rolling an intelligence modifier, or an intelligence check here. Okay, so that is actually somewhat easier to set up. So improved abjuration. I'm going to add a cast. And let's see, is it a cast or is it another one? Damage, heal, add an effect. And a cast. We're just going to check to see if I can add an effect here that might actually apply it. So just 1 second. All right, so I'm running into a bit of an issue here. I've done some testing, and the only way that it makes sense to create this is as a save, to be able to automatically have it calculate things out for you and actually apply your proficiency bonus as part of that particular process. But whenever I do that, right now all I'm doing is getting that. And I suspect it's because I don't have an NPC targeted, although I do have a champion targeted here. So I'm not entirely certain what's going on because I've loaded up the Battle Master and done the same thing. And as you can see here, it's literally just doing that. It's not rolling any particular dice here. So I'm kind of confused on that. Oh, that was a waste of a 20. But anyway. So I may have to come back to this at a later date. I'm wondering if there's something wrong with the way that these rolls are. But actually, just before I do anything there, let's just switch that to GM mode for a moment. NPCs. Let's throw our ever lovely goblin boss into the combat tracker. And I'm going to untarget that and target that. So whenever you cast Counterspell, yeah, so for some reason it is just not doing that. And I'm not entirely certain, so I'm going to have to come back to that and deal with that a little later. But here's an example of what you could potentially do to go through and set that up. So you can essentially tell the DM that your intelligence or your spellcasting ability, essentially what we're looking to do here is add roll a d20 and then add your proficiency bonus as well as your intelligence modifier to that d20 and have it do it automatically. And so far I can't seem to get something that is actually working. So may have to come back and deal with that at a later date for now. But you get the idea as to what it is that you have to do. Level 14 is where we're going to acquire our last School of Abjuration feature, and that's called Spell Resistance. So I'm just going to drop this into place. And starting at level 14, you have the advantage on saving throws against spells. Furthermore, you have resistance against the damage of spells. Well, that is actually kind of nice. So for those of you who are unaware, an Abjurer is really a defense specialist. So think wards and shields and stuff along those lines. You're built to protect people is the way that your spell repertoire builds up. And essentially by the time you hit level 14, you are now so set up for, you've done it for so long that you're now gaining advantage on your saving throws and you're gaining resistance to any spells that are any damage that you potentially suffer as a result. Now I'm hoping this is a power, and it does not look like it is a power that is set up. So there might be a couple of things that we could do here. So Abjurer. Okay, so it's under there. Spell resistance. I know that there's one effect that we can definitely do for sure, but this is going to require you, the player, to manually apply this before damage is taken. So spell resistance. And you gain an advantage to save. And that is to apply to self. And never, well, we might as well have it on next roll. In a maximum of 1 round. So that if you get through one particular run through, then in theory it'll go away. So you'll have to make sure that you turn it on and off. But I'm going to quickly check to see if there is a way to set it up so that we can test if there's an incoming spell, then you can gain advantage. No, so there doesn't look like there's a condition that you can look upon to determine if this is a spell that's coming in or not. So what you'll want to do is if the DM's throwing a spell at you or another player is throwing a spell at you, you can gain an advantage to a saving throw as long as it's going to trigger a saving throw. The other fact here is, furthermore, you have resistance against the damage of spells. So if you did fail on that particular save, even though you had the advantage, then there is one other thing that you could do, and that is to add another effect, and it would apply to yourself. And on next roll, and this would be spell resistance, and that would be I think the keyword is resistance. Let's resist. Okay, and I'm thinking the keyword magic might apply here. That way it would restrict it to normal spells or any magical effect coming in, but it could potentially also restrict it to or it could also potentially apply to magic weapons. So I'm thinking, I mean, the other option is instead of just including magic, you can literally include everything and strip out anything that would be considered weapon specific. Cold forged iron, that could go away. Not sure if magic is strictly on the weapon or not. So we'll get rid of that and leave it at that list. So that could potentially be what you do, because chances are one of the spell's going to do one of those types of damage, and then just 1 round self, and it should apply on the next roll. So that is something that you could potentially do to set it up. So DM says, okay, you need to do this I'm going to be casting this spell at you. Then you would apply this effect. You would then have advantage to saving throws. He or she executes that roll. Okay, so if I do, I have no idea why that flung around there. But anyway, it would trigger a potential effect on that, or trigger the saving throw. And then once that came into play, if there was still damage incoming, you'd remove that effect and then apply this effect. And it would apply to yourself, and then you could resist that type of particular damage. And that way you could simulate it in the game without having to worry about doing anything, and then just remove it once the attack is done. And next time it comes up, away you go. But I don't think... Okay, so it doesn't require a reaction in this case. So you can do it anytime you're receiving magical damage coming from a spell. Okay, so that actually completes everything specific to the School of Abjuration. If you wish to see what all the levels look like past level 15, please feel free to go and watch the Evoker video. And that literally covers everything from level 1 through to level 20. Or sorry, level 2 through to level 20. And I go into much greater detail in respect to that, whereas this video, I tried to focus strictly on the Abjurer specific specializations and specialization itself, as well as the features around it. Okay.